Icarus and Daedalus. Two names you might be very familiar with. If you're someone who was an avid lover of Greek mythology growing up, or maybe if you just read about their myth at school, or in college, or somewhere online, whatever it is. You might know the story, you might know it but not remember it, so I'll just rewind in short what the story is about. Basically, there was this monster on the island of Crete in Greek mythology, and there was this king, King Minos, who wanted the monster trapped. So Icarus and his father Daedalus built a labyrinth on the island in which the Minotaur was trapped. The point was to send the king's enemies into the labyrinth so that they could get lost in the maze and eventually the Minotaur would eat them. What happened was that after the maze was built, the king decided he had no more use for Icarus and Daedalus. Shocking, seeing as though they built the entire thing. So he sent them into the labyrinth, thinking the Minotaur would eat them, forgetting that they were the ones who knew the way out. So they got out. Yes, of course. But they were stuck on an island with no way off, no way to pass by any sort of port, use any boat, because the king would know and the king wanted them dead. So what did they do? They walked around on the shore of the island, where the king would never see them, and they started collecting bird feathers, seagull feathers to be precise. And they started to build wings with them, because as you would think, the most logical way for two humans stuck on an island in Greek mythology with every kind of possible death awaiting them would be to build wings. So they built those wings out of feather and some kind of natural glue, like beeswax. And the deal was to use these wings to fly low enough, still close to the ground or to the sea, so that if they fell down, they wouldn't just die, just to get far enough and get off the island. That was the deal. That was what Daedalus warned his son about. Even if you like the thrill, don't fly too high. This is Greek mythology we're talking about. What do you think happened? He flew too high. He got too close to the sun, and the heat burned the glue off his wings. So he died. While his father, smartly, kept using the wings to the capacity they could handle, not more than they could handle, and he flew high enough to get off the island. Now, you could see this story in many ways. You could understand it in many ways. You could take out many morals from it, many lessons from it. But the one I'm here to tell you about today is that Icarus, what happened with him, is that he overestimated the wings. How? Had he built wings that were stronger and could be able to withstand the heat of the sun, he could have flown high enough. But those wings, the journey that he took, if you want to represent it, the journey that he took, the steps he took, weren't enough for the goal he went for. He took steps that didn't prepare him well enough to go that high. So he took a certain journey, he built certain wings to go to some place, but not to go high enough. So he overestimated the goal that he could have because he wasn't ready enough. Now, I'm not here to tell you about boring Greek mythology myth that no one probably cares about anymore. Hi, my name is Valerie, and I'm here today to tell you about a sentence that I learned in my life, very recently actually, and that I'm still learning to apply to my everyday life because it's a challenge to all of us. But that sentence is one I hope by the end of this talk you will keep with you too, and it's walk before you fly. This brings me to how this whole idea came about. So a few months ago, I was applying for colleges, and I was writing an essay. And the concept for this essay was that we were supposed to pick a quote out of many quotes, which were all amazing, and write an essay on it. Now, I read all the quotes. One of them was by some kind of big artist, one of them was by some big graduate, and then one of them stuck out to me because I didn't really understand it at first. It was by someone called Lang Lang, an NYU graduate, and it said, "If you knew how to fly, but never knew how to walk, wouldn't that be sad?" I didn't understand it at first. It took me a few tries. I read it once, twice, 3 times, and then it hit. If you knew how to do the biggest thing in your life, if you reached the highest point in your life, you got the biggest job you could ever get, but you didn't know how to talk with people. You didn't know how to do basic math. You didn't know how to read. You didn't know how to do small things that are supposed to make up the journey that takes you to this big goal. Wouldn't that be sad? If you knew how to fly but never knew how to walk, wouldn't that be sad? So I chose this quote, and eventually, at the same time, I was coincidentally reading about Greek mythology. And so I linked them, this story that I just told you, and the quote. And I wrote that essay. Now, while I was writing it, I started to realize that I wasn't applying this concept in my life enough. And why was that? The human brain is wired to think that if we don't reach a high enough accomplishment in a short time, we're not good enough. The standards vary depending on what high accomplishment means to every person and every society. But most of the times, what we consider small milestones, like learning to go out on your own maybe, learning to go to the supermarket and buy your stuff on your own, is not a big achievement. And it could be a big achievement for you. But people decide that it's not. Because we decide that if we don't get the biggest job in the world in 2 years, then we're not accomplished enough. And that's not true. This concept might not be very easy to understand, and it still takes time. So I drew a little something. Not the best sketches ever, but bear with me for the sake of this to understand. So here, we can see a person. This person is high up on a platform, and this person has wings. Now, there are no stairs, no mountain, nothing leading up to the platform. So you might be thinking, how did this person get there? Logically, this person built wings and decided to rely on the most fragile thing they could have and just fly up. Now they're this high up in the air, at a very dangerous height if they fall down, very close to the sun, like the risk of vicarious story, very close to a tree branch, very close to two things, if not more, that could destroy their wings and basically cause them to fall to their death. So now if this person wanted to go down from the platform or decided to take a leap of faith, what would happen? They wouldn't survive, obviously. Now what you see here are random little blocks. Why are these random little blocks? Because this person skipped the important little steps in their journey. So instead of taking every one of these little blocks and building something out of it, building some kind of stairs, maybe some kind of mountain, whatever could take them up to that platform safely, they just threw it away because, oh, look at the skill I'm trying to learn right now. It might help me on the long run, but you know what? I just want to get to my goal. I have my wings. Let's throw this away. Great. Now you're up there. If you fly, you die, quite literally. Now I'm going to show you the same drawing, but with a slightly difference. That's actually a big difference. This person actually used the skills. This person took every block, took as much time as they needed. It might have taken them 50 years, I have no idea. And they built an entire set of stairs. They might be even higher than the other person. They're safer. They got up there using the stairs. They have the wings, because to me, I think the wings represent your dream. Obviously, your dream and your ambition are enough to get you up there. I can't say they're enough. They're not. Hard work has to go with it too. You can dream as much as you want. And it's good to dream, and it's good to have big goals, but to achieve them, you have to build your own set of stairs. To get to that platform and be safe, you have to build your stairs. You have to keep every skill you learn with you. You cannot skip any part of the journey that gets you to your goal. Because if you skip it, you'll have a block that's just not here. And your stairs won't be safe anymore. When you're high up on that platform, at some point you might need to go back down because you need to remember some kind of small skill that you learned, and then go back up. And you can go even higher from that point, only if you keep building your set of stairs. Now I'm going to talk to you about another example that's not a human. We're going to look at a plane. Have you ever seen a plane start on the ground and then snap? It's 30,000 feet up in the air, quite literally. I don't think anyone has ever seen that. The plane gains altitude through some time. It starts on the runway, goes on the runway, then starts gaining more altitude, until it reaches its desired point. And even when going down, it goes down slowly, then on the runway, then stops. If a machine that's quite literally built to fly, that is strong enough to withstand anything in the air most of the time, actually has to take so many steps and has to take so much time to go that high up in the air, who are we, as fragile humans, to think that we can just get to that point? You know what? I decided that tomorrow I want to be as famous as Taylor Swift. So I'm going to wake up tomorrow and I'm on that big stage with I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of people watching me. That can't be the case. You have to work your way up, and it might not be the thing people expect the most. But when you work your way up, you understand there's a sort of authenticity that comes with working your way up. Speaking of airplanes, I'm going to show you a picture on the slide, and I hope to see recognition on your faces from the characters on this picture. When we were 9 years old, they gave us a book, and they told us, you're going to need this book now for school. When you read it again, you'll understand it differently, depending on what age you are when you read it, and on the experiences you've lived. We didn't believe them. We just thought it was another step we were meant to take at school to get to our point, to get our good grades, to graduate, and we wanted to skip it. We thought they were convincing us to read the book, but we were wrong. Because I tried that. I read that book many times in my life. When I was 9, it was just a story about a little guy. When I was 15, it was a story about meeting people you learn to love and care about. And now that I'm 18, about to graduate, about to end one of the biggest journeys in my life and start a new one because it never stops, I realized that I can link this story directly to the concept I'm talking to you about today. The Aviator was a child who had dreams, who focused on the journey. To him, drawing a snake that has swallowed an elephant was the biggest accomplishment he could have done as a child. To the adults who didn't understand that, it was nothing. So they made them feel worthless about what he'd done. And eventually he became that aviator. Becoming that aviator, it's like he stopped building his set of stairs halfway. Or maybe he built it, but he forgot it existed. He was kind of blinded by everything that came with having that big plane and believing that, okay, I can fly a plane, I'm good. What do I need? What do I need of anything else I've learned in my life? I don't need to draw. I don't need to have friends. I don't need to, go to little things in life because I have a big plane and it can take me anywhere I want. Snap, your plane stopped in the desert. What do you do now? You're stuck with a random little guy, a very dreamy little guy, and his fox and his flowers and his planets. And by the end of the book, the aviator is laughing at the stars again. This made me understand that the little prince basically brought out the child in the aviator and the child in every one of us. Because he reminds us that there's a journey. And on that journey, not only do you learn skills like I was talking about before, but you also make memories. You meet people. You learn to care. You learn to do stuff. You learn to dream even more. And in a way, I think what the little prince did is that he reminded the aviator of who he was before. Someone who understood the small parts in the journey. Someone who had this journey and had this dream and never stopped. Just because he learned to fly planes doesn't mean he was the best person ever. He still has a journey ahead of him, and he should still go on it. And that's what the little prince reminded him of. And I think there's a little prince in each one of us that's here to remind us of the importance of the journey. Even nature has this concept. This is a tree trunk. You might have heard about what they call the circles of life in a tree trunk. Each circle has a color, each circle representing a season. So I like to view this as the tree actually congratulating itself in a way for, passing through each season. Because every time spring ends, a new circle is formed. At the end of summer and winter, a new circle is formed, etc., etc. Until the trunk becomes bigger and stronger. A tree congratulates itself, if you want, for its seasons. A tree keeps track of every step and every season in its very long life. And it stays strong through what it's kept with it. These are basically what help the tree to breathe and to, get nourished and get fueled and everything. So I think this is a perfect example of how nature works and keeps its steps along with it, and how we should learn to do that too. Because even if the human brain is wired to think that our smallest milestones aren't big accomplishments, I promise you they are. And I learned this, and it took me time to learn it. And I still struggle with it sometimes. I still struggle with believing that perfection isn't always the goal, that sometimes the small thing is the goal. Because if I start here, and my end goal is at the end of the stage, I actually have to take steps. 2, 3, 4, and then I get here. If I don't take these steps, I can never get here. If you're walking in mud, these steps are going to stay marked in the mud. They're marked in the soil of the earth. Everything stays with you as long as you're willing to remember that's the importance of it. A journey that's only characterized by the goal and not by the steps makes no sense. Which brings me to one of the main ways I learned this. I can't remember the first time I ever dreamed of singing on stage and being in a band. I can only remember that it's been my biggest dream ever since I learned that I could sing. And eventually, it came true. We formed a group of 7 people, some of whom I call some of my closest friends now. And we started working, we started planning. And when I was younger, I thought being in a band meant that we were ready. We got on stage, we played the song. I thought I could skip to the goal. But that was not true. It took work, and it took time, and it took preparing every song and preparing every concert and building our way up. And if I had to show you the best moments of my life with these people, I would obviously show you a lot of this. I would show you moments where thousands of people were watching us and we couldn't believe what was happening and we were having so much fun and it was a dream come true and it will always be one of the best moments I've ever had. But I would also show you this. I could have more pictures to show you, but truly, I think they would kill me because sometimes we have a little too much fun in our rehearsals. So I'd show you the rehearsals. One of our first rehearsals before our first concert, and one of our rehearsals recently. And many more moments. Because after every concert, I look at them and I say, you know what? I think it went too fast. I think I missed the rehearsals. Because the concert is a moment in time. It's an hour, 2 hours, depending on how much time we've got. It's a moment in time compared to the weeks and weeks we spend working together. It's a moment in time compared to the hours I spend with these people, sometimes seeing them more than my family, having fun, and sometimes being randomly childish, sometimes being completely serious, and yet getting the job done, because that's what we know. Because as musicians, every one of us has a role to keep working their way up, to go through the first skills they learned when they learned to play their instrument or when we learned to sing, and start building up the song and creating it, and then starting all over again for the next song, and starting all over again for the next concert. And this is the main experience that taught me how important every step on the journey is. Because if I could go back to something, I would go back to the concert, but I think I'd go back and spend even more time in the rehearsals. Every rehearsal of every concert is different because every step of every journey is different. And it's what made me understand this the most. Walk before you fly is a sentence that I have to keep reminding myself of. Sometimes I look at my friends and I tell them that I feel like I've not accomplished enough, and they laugh at me because I'm the one who usually tells them the opposite. I'm the one who usually tells them to keep working on the steps in your goal. This is what I want you to remember from this talk. I want you to remember that every small milestone is important. If the best thing you did today was get up, get out of your house, and go to the supermarket on your own, you're amazing. You've accomplished a big thing, and it's one of the biggest accomplishments you'll ever do because it's the first thing you did on your own, perhaps. If the biggest thing you did today was get a job as a CEO of the biggest company ever, you're amazing too. The only difference is that one took a long journey and one is still in the process of the journey, and eventually you'll get to your dreams if you keep these wings with you, which are your dreams, and if you keep building the steps up again and again and again, because life is a journey, you'll get there. I have faith in you. But I have faith that you will remember to enjoy every step, to make memories, to form bonds, to remember things, because you'll never know when these steps will be so important to you. I hope for each and every one of you that you remember to walk before you fly. Thank you.